Hello and welcome to Commander's Keep. I'm your host for the day, Dan, and I thought today, rather than the normal deck list we list on our channel, we go through some of the spoilers in the new Murders at Karlov Manor that have attracted my eye that I think would work really well in your Commander decks. There's a few I'm going to go through, it's about possibly 6 or so. Obviously you've seen if you've seen the spoilers online, you will know what I'm on about, but we're obviously going to discuss each one of these cards and go into detail on how well they would work for different synergies or sort of stuff that may happen as a result of the new set coming out. And to kick off our first one, we have, drum roll, a Slice from the Shadows. It's a newer set card, which is an instant black and X card. It can't be countered, which I like a card that can't be countered. Always good black removal that can't be countered is amazing. You can deal with someone's commander or the troublesome creature that's getting in the way. But this one's really interesting. So it says target creature gets negative X until end of turn. So that deals with your indestructible nonsense as well. And obviously gets around the fact of the idea of doing damage. So say if you were against something like in a black deck or like an Obliterator, Phyrexia Obliterator, you could neg it, neg X it, rather than directly hitting it or destroying it, because someone could obviously make it indestructible or whatnot. So that gets around a lot of indestructible sort of cards, and that's what you want. You really want to have spot on removal. There's uncounterable, because most of the time in Commander you're dealing with annoying strategies of your opponent just basically holding out their mana to counter your spell. And who likes having their spells countered, especially if you want to deal with a threat? And threat destruction with instant ability and negative counter stuff, that's what we want. I really like something that deals with that. It's really an interesting card. And we've obviously had X spells before, but this particular one, for removal purposes, is really good. And I really think that's worthwhile, including stuff that says uncounterable. So let's just jump on the next one. The next one I would like to have a look at is Outrageous Robbery, which is another X spell, but this one's a little bit more interesting. This one is an X double black instant. Target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library face down. You may look at and play those cards as long as they remain exiled. If you cast this spell this way, you may spend mana as though it were any mana of any type to cast it. So that basically gets around the idea if you basically target someone who's using a mono blue, a mono red, or any other colours that isn't in your command identity. So you could basically, if someone's like vampiric tutored for something specific, you could, in response, basically gather. Say, I'll take the top X 10 spells. I'll pay 12. 12 mana for that is great, so you can just basically take the top of someone's deck. 12 cards in, you could cast all the really cool threats, but really speaking, you're probably going to do it for hate pieces or like an X1 spell, especially if someone's vampiric tutored, or went out of the way to put a card on the top with one of the other tutors, like Ideal Tutor or World Tutor, anything like that. Any of the tutor spells that someone's trying to set up for the point, if you're about to have it before your end phase or their end phase, jump in with that spell. Great. I could see this being a format warping card, mostly for hate pieces and nothing else. And basically, when it comes out, it's something I would seriously consider putting in my Crick deck, because who doesn't like casting other people's spells? Right, the Hunted Bone Brute. Now, see, the hunted cards are interesting because beforehand they used to have a few hunted cards, and they were all quite interesting in what they did. They always had a neg effect. There was one that was basically a green creature that created centaurs that were protection from green. There was the blue one that did the same, the dragon that did the same. This one is interesting because it's normally a bit cheaper than the others. Not though. I do think it was a Hunted Horror that's a double black. It's a 6/6 creature for 2, but you give an opponent two. I think it's 2/3/3 pro black centaurs as well. But this one is a 2 miscellaneous and a black for a menacing 6/2. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent creates 2 white dog tokens. They're not protection from black, but they're 2 1/1 white dog tokens. And when it dies, each opponent loses 3 life, but also has the sub effect to be saying disguise of 2 miscellaneous and a black. And the new disguise mechanic is like a new morph mechanic in this format, where so if you played for the disguise format of this, it would enter the battlefield, you got 6/2 with menace, and your opponents don't get any dogs. So yeah, not a bad card. Obviously it's going to be a rare, but all the hunted cards are fun, but they always have a big downside at points. Which, to be fair, this is more versatile because it's like a 3-drop for 6/2, which you can get round your opponent, get the immediate effect of it, or the boon rather. So let's see, that's Hunted Bone Root and Angress, the Mole God. Mole God. So obviously this was talked about before by Rosewater, saying there was going to be a Mole God, but this one's really cool. It's 2 miscellaneous and a red green for a legendary Mole God 8/4. When this becomes blocked, untap each creature you control. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase. However, it has a sub ability on it, which says 3 plus a double red and a double green. Anzag must be blocked each combat this turn if able. So you can guarantee your ways to try and get multiple combats in the way. Give it indestructible, force it out on the field, just smash, and it basically makes Gruul once again in a commander format more viable. And it's a different subtype. Think of the new Gloomburrow set that will be coming out. There's going to be moles. I guarantee it. If we've already got rats, we've got mice, and we've got squirrels and foxes, we're going to get moles and badgers and some other stuff, which we already have badgers, but there'll obviously be more tribal points of that, or typal rather is the point they like to call it now. Okay, the crime novelist. This is one I like the most because this opens up many different sort of strategies regarding treasures. So it's 2 miscellaneous and a red for a 1/3. Decent power and toughness for what it is. 3-drop for a 1/3. It isn't a 2/1 or a 1/2 or anything like that. It's got a chubby defense of 3, so someone's going to have to at least put a lightning bolt level of damage to deal with that sort of scenario. But it has this lovely bit on it that I think would work amazingly well. Obviously, it's a set for clues. Ignore that. Treasures. It's the way you should go. And it has, whenever you sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Crime Novelist and add a red mana. So you're sacrificing mana with your treasures to get other red mana. You're going to get more red mana. So this gets the idea that it's viable to possibly build Goblin Storm in Commander. And yeah, this with a Dockside Extortionist can be absolutely insane. I could see a 2-turn win, not 2-turn, but basically a 2-card combo kicking off to win at this point. If your opponent has 4 or 5 treasures plus or your opponents have 4 or 5 treasures or enchantments, artifacts, yeah, this could get really mean. And also you got the treasure bonus of sacking them for the actual treasure mana you want, plus this in addition. So I could see spells basically chaining off one another constantly with this. It's a really good card for us. I see this being worth cash fairly soon. So if you can get yourself a copy of it, probably beforehand, before the set is released, or just as it comes out, don't let it sit about, because I see players jumping right on that and making treasure stuff viable as well, which we felt was always viable in Commander, but even more so. The next one I want to talk about is Krenko, Baron of the Tin Street. He is basically more what I'm going to talk about, where we're talking about treasure strategies. Which, to be fair, for a Krenko Commander, he's a 3/3 for 3. He's cheaper than his other incarnations. He doesn't obviously create goblins as a whole as the other ones do. Doesn't need to attack and make goblins or tap on goblins. But he is a 3/3 haster, which with the ability it says, tap it, sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on each goblin you control. Bonkers. Alone. Bonkers. Your board's going to get massive, especially if you're playing treasures. And whenever an artifact is put in your graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay a red. If you do, create a 1/1 goblin token that gains haste until end of turn. So we're going to create red mana with a Crime Novelist. We Krenko out with our Dockside Extortionist and basically have a mob full of red mono swinging goblins. I could see an entire wipeout of the rest of the Commander players when this hits play, and you've got that sort of combo in play. Or more like synergies in play. Which, to be fair, yeah, treasure strategies, they're looking great. I know obviously the Wizards were aiming for clues and such, but we're probably going to end up playing with treasures because, we're going to pick out and choose our cards. Which, to be fair, if you're the sort of person that likes to do that with new sets, finding the particular cards you like and look through, yeah, there's a lot of new stuff that's come out, but we're only going to go through these and what the ones I like. So we're nearly at the end, guys. Okay, so I said Krenko Mob Boss, and another one that would work with a token strategy, a War Leader's Call. A War Leader's Call is an enchantment which is a miscellaneous and a red-white. Creatures you control get a +1/+1. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under control, War Leader's Call deals 1 damage to each opponent. Now, Since the cards that come out in the previous couple of sets, we've had token doublers, triplers, and everything else. So the idea, if you make one goblin, imagine you get 3 goblins out of that one goblin. With that, hit the play. You're basically lightning bolting for just goblins being entering play. Creatures just entering play. It doesn't say creature tokens or anything else, just creatures entering your board. So that, and obviously with Goblin Bombardment, you're going to be shocking people for every token created. That can be absurd. And I can see this being a well thought out card. Obviously, because it's adding white, we can obviously add a different element to it. But if you're trying to run a more aggressive, deck that runs white as well, then yeah, that with goblins or that with someone else, and you obviously use that for lightning helixes and other sort of bits of removal, path to exile, swords to plowshare, that kind of thing. Those sort of things add with a white element to it. But the idea of token strategies, that just makes it more efficient and more aggressive, purely playing your things. Playing your things is clearly the way to go with that. Now, obviously there's going to be a lot more cards coming out before the new set arrives. But the cards I've mentioned today are the ones that I really like the look of. And obviously, if you have any other comments to put regarding cards and which cards you're excited for, or what cards you think would strategize regarding that, please feel free to comment, like, and share and subscribe. Because obviously, the more people that see the video, the more we'll get to see the Legion of Keepers. And I've got Commander Keepers. Be fair, we'll work on a title obviously when there's more of you, but feel free to like, share and subscribe, and you guys try and have a nice day. I'm your host for today, Dan, signing off.